Hey there everyone, and welcome to the channel for another Escape From Tarkov video. It's a new wipe and a new year, so it's time for some new builds to get things started off right. In this latest patch, the offerings from level 1 traders have actually changed up quite a bit. Some of the old familiar favorites have been taken out of easy circulation, and some of the former rat gear is moving in to take its place. I think it's a nice step in the right direction, offering a slightly lower overall power level available for immediate purchase, and making some of the lesser used weapons like early SMGs seem a lot more attractive to people who are looking to buy themselves a loadout. I also think this current trader situation has really made finding weapons and ammo in the early wipe a lot more exciting. You can't buy stuff like 7.62 PS and M855 or PST ammo from the traders, so when you drop a scab with an SKS or an ADAR, those mags full of ammo are actually extremely helpful and worth taking. For this video, I'm not going over every single build you can make from level 1 traders, but I'll be focusing on builds that I've been using, stuff that I see other players taking me out with, and some cool little stuff you can build at level 1 traders if you've been lucky with your loot and made a few extra rubles. To start this off, of course, if there's an M4 build that I've been using, you better believe it's going to be the first one I cover in a video. The M4 is my favorite weapon in Tarkov, and quite honestly, this wipe I've been really having great success with M4 loadouts, using just basic attachments and ammo. The way I see it, while most players are going to gravitate towards SMGs and semi-auto 7.62 rifles, even without easy access to M855 ammo, the M4 still offers the perks of an SMG with its high fire rate, while also giving you the range, accuracy, and better armor damage of a rifle round. I've been using the M4 with a mix of FMJ rounds from Peacekeeper and M855 rounds that I find on scavs from their ADAR mags, and I've been having pretty good success with this thing. You can either use M4s that you start off with as a USEC, or you can use the barter trade from Peacekeeper level 1 for CPUs and CPU fans, or you can just take down USEC Timmies like I did and steal their M4s. For my level 1 builds, I've been using two setups. First is the most basic M4 you can get, literally just a stock M4 with a Cobra reflex sight to replace the iron sights. This reflex sight will let you see over the top of the front sight, and it will help you get the job done. You can also add the sight shade to this one for a little ergonomics buff. This setup is about as basic as you can get, and this one definitely works with an ADAR, but I don't think the next one will. Alternatively, I've also been using a slightly more tricked out version. First, you can buy the KAC RIS handguard from Peacekeeper. Just keep in mind that you now need to buy these handguards in two pieces, the top and bottom rail. I don't really like this change, but don't forget to add the bottom rail. Next, I buy the Zenit RK6 foregrip from Skier, along with the 25mm mount ring, and the Ultrafire flashlight from either Skier or Peacekeeper as well. With this setup, you get a slight recoil bonus, some extra ergonomics, and you have a flashlight so you can see in the dark or blind other players. These builds are pretty simple, but so far for me, they've been very useful at the start of the wipe. Next up, I just want to get the AKs out of the way. This is the first wipe where 7.62 PS ammo has been restricted from the traders at level 1, so in some ways the AK isn't the perfect level 1 build anymore. But in reality, you can pretty easily find 7.62 PS ammo or 5.45 ammo on scavs, so really you should be able to still run AKs, there's just one extra step here. You can also easily find AKs on scavs and in weapon boxes, usually with mags and ammo, so keep your eyes open and you'll be full of AKs in no time at all. The attachments available at level 1 though are far more restrictive than they once were, so the builds available are very simple, and these attachments should work on almost any AK you find. Basically, what I would recommend doing with all AKs in the very early game is to just put a sight on them and call it good. From level 1 Skier, you can buy the Bastion dust cover, which lets you mount a sight. For my builds, I usually run the Cobra reflex sight from Jaeger, which can also take the sight shade for an ergonomics bonus. On AKs with a dovetail mount, like the 74N or the 103, you can also just use the dovetail Cobra sight from Proper and save the money spent on the dust cover. If you want a slight recoil bonus as well, you can buy the Ultimac railed gas tube from Skier level 1 and replace the front handguard and gas tube with this thing, which gives a slight stat bonus and also adds a front rail that can accept some flashlights. Finally, if you're willing to run the 366 AK, the VPO 209, you can also add the Rotor 43 366 suppressor, which is sold by Skier level 1. This AK has pretty horrible recoil and accuracy, but the ability to run suppressed is kind of clutch at the start of the wipe. One last honorable mention for the AKs is the AKS-74U, which has actually gained a lot of attachments at level 1 traders. You can buy basic handguards and sight mounts at level 1, which is kind of cool and adds a lot of utility for the 74U. You can also buy the suppressed 74UB version, but personally I think the price tag is a little bit steep, especially because the suppressor it comes with has kind of bad stats. For a really simple setup on this thing, you can buy the Goliath Arms handguard from Mechanic, which has 4 rails on it for attachments. You can just add a reflex sight to the top of the handguard and call it good if you want. However, you can also add the RK6 foregrip for the extra stats, and then the 25mm mount ring and the flashlight for utility. This thing still has some pretty intense recoil, but it's cheap for a rifle, and the ability to take mods early is kind of a big bonus. Next up, we have a level 1 setup that honestly has more cool factor than it does stopping power, but for those who really enjoy running shotguns, you can do some pretty neat modding to the 590A1 shotgun early on now. Most of these parts used to be at higher level traders, but now you can buy upgraded stocks and a sight rail for the Mossberg right at level 1. First, you add the 590A1 tactical rail, which has a sight mount up top. You can just run iron sights, but you can also add the Cobra reflex sight for a better sight picture. This rail also has slots for tactical attachments, so I buy the 25mm mount ring and then the ultrafire flashlight, and now this shotgun has a nice sight picture, a flashlight for utility, and it has an 8-round magazine by default, so it's a pretty useful self-defense weapon for close range. Now we get into the SMGs, which got a lot of extra support at level 1 traders this wipe. Partially because rifles are less available, but also because some weapons, mags, and attachments were moved up to level 1 traders. First up, we have the Keter family, a very simple, high rate of fire leg meta machine, which can be purchased from proper level 1. This has always been available, but in this wipe, you can actually buy the Keter B suppressed version from proper level 1. This one has been sold out a lot, obviously because it's the only suppressed SMG available right now in the game at level 1, but if you can get a hold of one of these things, it's a really useful tool to quietly explore the map and dispose of scavs. You can buy 20-round mags from proper, but you can also trade pliers for 30-round mags at level 1 proper, or take them off of dead scavs. The Keter can be tricky to use sometimes, but if you aim for the legs and don't try to take long shots, this thing is a pretty trusty friend. Another really simple but surprisingly effective early wipe run and gun loadout is the PPSH-41, which can be bought at proper level 1, along with the 71-round drum magazine, which almost guarantees that you will have fire superiority over anything that you run into during the early wipe. The PPSH is kind of the definition of spray and pray, so don't expect to be too precise with it. The high fire rate and large magazine can definitely win you close range fights against people with bad armor, but pick your battles well with this thing and don't overextend your range. Next, the UMP is now much more readily available from level 1 traders, with 2 barter trades available at level 1 Mechanic and Peacekeeper, as well as mags and ammo from Peacekeeper. The UMP was already really strong, so now it's just as strong but easier to get. The beauty of the UMP is that it comes ready to mod, with rails for attachments and a sight, so it's kind of easily the best early game SMG. You can be really simple about this and run it with just iron sights, or just slapping a Cobra red dot sight up top, and that's totally viable. However, you can also use the rail space if you want, starting with the Zenit RK6 foregrip for extra stats, and then adding the 25mm mount rings and the ultrafire flashlight. Any way you use it, the UMP is easily one of the best early game weapons, so save up for those barter trades. For the starter SMGs, MP5s for the USEC and PP19 for the Bear, you can add sights to both of them, but otherwise you're kind of out of luck for level 1 mods since they took away some of the AK parts that would work on the PP19. For the MP5, you need the MFI HK mount from Peacekeeper, then you can add a Cobra reflex sight onto that, or whatever sight that you bought or found in raid. For the PP19, you can just add the Dovetail Cobra sight from proper, and that's really all you can do now early on. Technically, you could do a barter trade for the Osprey suppressor from Mechanic and add that to the PP19, but honestly, I think the drills are better saved for the hideout this early in the wipe. To finish off this video, I'd also like to recommend a few single shot and bolt action setups as well. Starting with the classic Mosin, sold by proper level 1 in a few different varieties and pretty easily found on sniper scavs. The Mosin needs no introduction, so I'll keep it brief. This might be the strongest long range build that you can make at level 1, But if you want to add the sniper scope, you'll need to find a sniper version of the Mosin out in the raid. I don't really love the Mosin personally, but if you're good at taking long range shots with iron sights, this rifle will let you easily 2-tap most PMCs at almost any distance early on. Next, we have the VPO 209, which shoots the 366 ammo type, so it offers you high damage but overall low accuracy and range for a bolt action. The beauty of this thing though is that at level 1 you can add a scope using the 25mm UTG mount and the Pylad 4x scope from Jaeger. So this is a pretty great rifle for taking medium range shots at scavs on maps like woods or shoreline. The VPO can also be suppressed using the Rotor 43 366 suppressor from Skier, so while it's not the best rifle overall, it does have some interesting utility. Finally, we have the SKS, which is, like always, sitting in an awkward middle ground between being good and being too clunky to be worth using. The SKS is great because it shoots 7.62 PS rounds, and it's cheap. However, it's also very limited by a 10-round internal magazine, and very little access to good, cheap attachments. That being said, there is some hope for this bad boy thanks to trader changes this wipe. First, you can simply buy the OP SKS from Jaeger level 1, which has a dovetail mount for sights. You can then either add the Cobra reflex sight, or you can get a PSO 4x scope from Proper and slap that on there for some range, which is what I like to do. You can also buy the 20-round magazine from Peacekeeper, but the price tag on this thing has gone way up, so I don't know how worth it that is. Next, you can now buy the Tapco SKS attachments from Mechanic level 1, either using the barter trade for the entire build, or just buying one piece at a time from Mechanic and then adding the M4 stock from Peacekeeper to finish it off. If you do this on a normal SKS, you can add a Cobra sight to the front rail to replace the iron sights. However, if you build this on an OP SKS, you can still add the PSO scope for the extra range. Finally, you can also add a foregrip to the bottom rail for the extra stats. Personally, I don't know if it's worth the money to build the SKS over other choices, but it does have access to decent ammo, so if you enjoy using it, the extra stats from the mods and the 4x scope can make this thing pretty useful. Well, that kind of covers it for what I've been using as my early wipe builds, and what I'm seeing myself get taken out by from other players. There's a lot of other stuff you could set up by finding parts and weapons in the raid, but this is a pretty good overview of stuff that you can set up using the traders. I'll be coming at you with level 2 traders very soon, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. Thanks for checking out the video, and until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.